Hi, everybody. Hi, my name is Kelly Kirk. Welcome to our Facebook Live on our page, A New Way to Recover. Um, we have a group every day of the week, and this one is recovery. So we're our Facebook online support group supported by the Sandhills Opioid Outreach Consortium. This is a forum where people in recovery can come together. We are here to encourage and support people in their recovery journey by sharing our own experience, strength, and hope. Our meetings consist of daily readings, meditations, devotionals, and open discussions. We only ask that when sharing, you adhere to the rules and guidelines of this page. All recovery paths are welcome, and please feel free to join the discussion by leaving comments or if you want to talk about a certain topic or want to go explore something a little further that we're talking about. I welcome that, so please interact if you're on here. So today I thought I would talk about trauma. Trauma plays a big part in addiction for a lot of people. Trauma is a broad term used to describe a wide range of incidents. The most common include rape or sexual assault, general physical assault, domestic or intimate partner violence, extreme verbal and emotional abuse, bullying and repeated harassment of any kind, terminal illness, natural disasters, accidents such as car crashes or fire, and parental neglect. So that covers a lot of stuff. Hey, Shay. Hey, girl. She's the one I can always count on to be on here. So anyways, I'm glad you're here, Shay. This is cool. I was going to call you later anyway. But anyway, so for me, this was an important topic for today because I talked about this with two of my clients today. We talked about some of the things that they went through as a child. And then another one of my clients is in a domestic violence situation. And it's really hard. I mean, even as her peer support specialist, to see her going through what she's going through. And I've been the victim of domestic violence. And I don't like really saying victim, but it happened to me before and several times. And of course, I was in the thralls of my addiction at the time. But it's hard because you love this person if it's if it's a partner violence thing. You love the person and you know that they have good qualities and they're not always being evil and beating on you. And so, and it's not always easy to just leave. I mean, if you have children there or if, that's your home, it kind of sneaks up on you. People don't usually do that in the beginning. They're really nice and things are great and you get all settled in and you're emotionally attached and you're involved, and then things start to slowly happen. And at first you're like, well, it was just a one-time thing, or you downplay it, and then it happens more and more and more. And for my one client, I mean, I don't want to talk about her too much, but she took a huge step this week and she got out. She tried to get out and it didn't actually work, but we're trying like a different avenue now. We're going to like just work on her, plotting her escape. So, but childhood trauma is really common, unfortunately, and it has a negative impact on people's quality of life. I mean, it messes with the way that you think about things. It increases your stress overall, because when you're around violence when you're young, it's really upsetting, and especially when you're a child. Like for me, I can remember the first time my mom just went nuts on me and just started beating me. And it was like, I can remember being in her bedroom and it was just it was so traumatic, and I mean, my mom had some mental health issues, but she was a woman, and she didn't do it all the time, but the times that it happened, I distinctly remember them vividly. And I know that there are a lot of children, even right now, that are going through that. And, you know, it leads to addiction a lot of times. And so I read this article, and I'm going to post the link on here if anyone wants to see it. But it talks about examples of childhood trauma influencing drug addiction. Chemical dependency takes many forms, and many of them are often linked to trauma sustained in developmental years. Whether we develop a crippling alcohol addiction out of a need for social acceptance or any other reason, start smoking marijuana to escape our everyday reality, start shooting heroin or taking painkillers to avoid memories of deep-rooted abuse or anything else. So those are some of the things, the ways that people get into substances because of the things that are happening to them physically and emotionally. Another interesting statistic that I saw is that 1/3 of kids with a report of abuse, by the time they're 18, they have a substance use disorder. So it's actually said more than 1/3. So that means all the kids that are being abused, more than 1/3 of them are going to be addicted by the time they're 18, basically because of what happened to them. And kids are helpless. They can't do anything about what's happening to them most of the time. And it's really bad. And a lot of times it's a cycle. Like the adults that are beating them, they were beat as a kid. It's a vicious cycle, and you have to make a conscious decision not to do your kids the way you were done. You have to on purpose not follow in those footsteps of abuse and neglect. So like I was saying, I wanted to talk a little bit more about domestic abuse and addiction. So I want to read a little bit from this article. Domestic abuse is one of the most common forms of childhood trauma and can have a direct impact on the formation of addiction. In a recent study published in the Journal of Drug and Alcohol Dependence, researchers from Columbia University found that domestic abuse drastically increases the likelihood of the onset of chemical dependency. Another recent study revealed a close relationship between physical and emotional child abuse and the development of drug or alcohol addiction as a result of emotional dysregulation. This trauma can either form as a result of direct abuse or having to witness abuse in the home, the latter being a factor with which far too many children are forced to contend. So basically, that last part, if your mom is being beat and you are forced to watch that, then you are also being abused. So I think it's really important. This article goes on to say that if you did sustain abuse or domestic abuse, or you were abused as a child and had childhood traumas, the best way to confront that and to, treat it is to not only treat your addiction, but also treat those traumatic memories that you have. There's a lot of treatment facilities like rehabs that you can go to that will have an intensive, not a behavioral, it's like an intensive trauma group that you can join, where they really drill down and get you to talk about those childhood traumas and get you to a place where you can function without that affecting you in a negative way, kind of like revisit it and put it in its rightful place in your mind rather than letting it affect you, and also realizing how those memories are affecting you in everyday life, because sometimes you don't even realize it. But so there are ways to treat that. But if you don't treat your traumas and you just get off the drugs, those memories are always still going to be with you. And there's a good chance you'll go back to using if you don't treat those childhood traumas that you suffered when you were a kid, because they stay with you. You have flashbacks, or you hear loud noises, or you're super sensitive to other people, like, being hurt, and you think back, just when you least expect it, you'll have a memory of something that happened to you, and it still shakes you up, because usually when those violent things happen, it's very sudden and unexpected, and all of a sudden, something's going on, and when you're a kid, it's out of your control. Or, if you're being abused by your partner, it's really hard to escape, but it can be done, and it happens all the time. And it's really important that if you are being abused by somebody, that you get help there. And I'll put up a link for that too, just in case. But there are domestic violence shelters around. There's, I think, at least one in every county, maybe a couple counties. There really should be more, but there's lots of information online for people that need to get help with getting out, or starting over. So let's see what else. Sexual abuse is another big thing. It says here, another tragically common element of childhood trauma includes sexual abuse. Data from the Department of Health and Human Services indicate that almost 60,000 children are sexually abused per year. The Department of Justice's report, Sexual Assault of Young Children as Reported to Law Enforcement, indicates that 14% of all men and 36% of all women in prison were abused as children. It screws people up. It screws them up bad. And it's really important to target that and address it and help yourself be able to deal with it, in a healthy way, and don't repeat the cycle, because that happens a lot. And I saw somewhere it's like 1 in 5 kids is being sexually abused or, molested. And that should not be happening in this day and age. I don't think enough is being done about that. I mean, that's crazy. 60,000 kids. I bet it's more than that. Because, you're threatened when you're a kid. You're threatened not to tell anyone. And there's a lot of shame and guilt involved, even when it's not your fault. And, more needs to be done to bring that to light and make people know that it's not okay, and that secrets make you sick. And it's terrible. I wish I could do more to help these kids, because that's a shame. I mean, your home should be your sanctuary. It should be a place where you feel safe and loved. And it's just terrible that, kids can't even feel comfortable in their own homes. So I don't really have a whole lot to talk about today. That was my topic. It's just trauma plays a big role in addiction, and I wanted to bring that to life because, it affects a lot of people. And I think that if you do have trauma in your past, I think one way to deal with it for sure is to get, treatment, get some behavioral therapy, talk to a therapist, a psychiatrist, or a psychologist, or some kind of a therapist, or get some intensive behavioral therapy. But also small things, more layman things that I can talk about are like journaling, which I talk about that a lot. It's really important to write down your feelings, write down your memories. If you're being haunted by a memory all the time, writing it down and explaining it on paper, no one's ever going to read it, but you're writing it down for you, and it will help you to write down everything that happened and pour your heart out on the paper. And then when you're done and you've told the whole story and it's over, you can set it aside, and that will help you therapeutically in your mind that you just wrote it all down and you're setting it to the side, and it kind of gives you a mental break from that whole story and that whole chapter. And it can help you therapeutically to deal with that incident if you write everything down. And it helps to get it out of your head, because it's like when we have thoughts, our brain wants to keep going back to that to kind of work things out. But if you can write it down on paper, you've worked it out, and your brain can take a break from that. And that goes, with any kind of incident that's bothering you in your thoughts. If you write them down, it does something. It does something to write everything down. It's causing you to have to form the words and the sentence to describe it, and you're kind of reliving it on paper, and it's very therapeutic. Another thing that you can do, a lot of times people that have experienced abuse will get stressed out easy, and they'll maybe be more aggravated or irritable or less tolerant to things that are stressful. Hang on 1 second. I saw something on here about that. Individuals who experience childhood trauma may experience a number of short-term and long-term psychological and behavioral symptoms, including prolonged agitation and irritability. That was me. When I was like in my early 20s, I was aggravated all the time. I was irritable. I had no tolerance for anything, and I've changed a lot since then. Avoidance of things that remind them of the trauma. That seems pretty natural to want to avoid. Erratic changes in mood and behavior. Prolonged and consistent fear and nervousness. Timidity and lack of confidence. Constantly reliving the event. And an excessive and often inappropriate display of emotions. Yeah, our minds can be our biggest enemy, and that's something that I always talk about, is our thoughts and our thought life and our self-talk, and the way that we talk to ourselves and the way that we think about things and the way that we process things in our mind is really important. And I feel like for me, getting an understanding of that really has helped me. I used to just entertain every thought that came in my head. If something came up from years ago, I'd think all about it, and I'd feel all the emotions again and start getting sad. And it was like my thoughts were controlling my emotions. Whatever I thought about, I would react to, and I would be in a mood because of it. And then I started realizing and reading more and more about how we don't have to believe every thought that comes in our head. We can choose. We can stop things in their tracks, and we can, change the story, change the channel in our minds, and decide on purpose to think about something positive or something good, rather than just, wake up and you have these bad thoughts and all of a sudden you're having a bad day. If you can catch those thoughts when they first start to materialize, you can say, wait a minute, no, I'm not going to think about this right now. I'm not going to let myself think about this. I'm going to think about what I'm doing in an hour. And then that lets you, because your mind can only think about one thing at a time. So as long as you're controlling that one thought, that you're having right now, then you can lead your own thoughts, and you can decide based on what you want to feel. You can decide what to think about and what not to think about. And that's something that's really helped me. So let's see, what else can we talk about? Your self-talk is important too. The things that you tell yourself about yourself. Like if you were abused or mistreated or neglected as a child, you might naturally have these thoughts that you're no good, or because these people that loved you mistreated you. It must be something that you did, or there must be something wrong with you. But I think deep down we know that it's not us, but our thoughts want to take us there, But it's important that we change those thoughts. When we start thinking that we're worthless or no good or that nobody loves us, God loves us, and there are people around us that love us, and we need to choose to embrace those things rather than these negative thoughts that come up in our heads. And you know, you can always be in a good mood if you want to be. You can calm yourself down if you want to. I mean, I know a lot of people have really struggle with that, but to some degree you can calm yourself down. You know, you can get a hold of those thoughts and you can on purpose think something else, and then your emotions will follow. You know, it's like whatever you're thinking about, your emotions are going to go the same way. So if you're thinking about how stressed out you are all the time and oh my God, I can't calm down, then of course your heart rate's going to go up. You know, you're going to start sweating. You're going to, you know, it feeds into it. Your body reacts to what you're thinking. So if you can change your thinking or control your thinking or be selective in your thinking, then pretty soon your body will follow you and your emotions will follow you. So if you think about things logically and kind of get a hold of your mental state at the moment, you can do you can do a lot to change your behavior. Let's see. I don't know if you're still there, Shay, but do you have anything you want me to talk about? Any topics? Let's see. All right. We'll talk about attitude of gratitude. That's a big one for me. Having an attitude of gratitude means that rather than focusing on the things that you don't have, which I think as humans, we tend to focus on what we don't have. You know, you think about like rich people that have all these problems and, you know, they're never happy, but they have everything in the world. They have all this money and fame and they have all these cars and houses and they're not happy. And I think a big part of that is that they're not grateful for what they do have. They're focusing on that one thing that they're not able to attain and ignoring all the things that they do have to be grateful for. Like for me, I have so much to be grateful for. And when I look at the things that I'm grateful for, it makes me happy. And it makes me feel glad that I have so much good in my life and I have so many good people around me. I have some family and I have, you know, I live in America and I have clothes to wear and food to eat and a nice pillow to sleep on. And so, hey, I'm good. I'm happy. I have things, you know? So it's like if you come at things from that angle rather than, oh, you know, I really want this or that and I'm never going to get it and I can never get what I want, then you're going to be discontented and you're going to be sad and you're not going to be focusing on the good things that you have. So I find for me, what puts me in a good mood is to just name a couple things that I have to be grateful for. It could be anything. It could be, I'm grateful that I have this drink, you know, or whatever, you know. So that's a big thing for me in recovery is to be grateful for the things I have. And I find too that the more things I'm grateful for, the more things I get. You know, it's almost like whatever you put out is what you're going to get back. And that goes with everything, you know. Having goals in recovery is really important. You want to have a direction that you're following. You want to have an idea of what you want to be doing and what you should be doing with yourself rather than just like floating through your day and just letting things happen as, you know, dealing with things as they come. And, you know, pretty soon the day's over, you haven't got anything done, you know, and you don't feel like you've accomplished anything. That's not a way to be, because in recovery, you have to watch yourself. You have to stay in line. You have to make sure that you're on top of your game. And I think a big way for me is to have goals and keep track of those goals and keep track of my progress, because when I am doing good and I'm getting some things done, that makes me feel good. So, you know, having goals is really important, because I love when I can go to my list and cross some things off because I got things done. That makes me feel like I've accomplished something. Having faith is a big thing. Let's see. Making a recovery plan. That's really, really important in recovery. You want to have an idea of what your recovery is going to look like, based on your personal needs and your personal situation. Have a plan. How am I going to start off in my recovery? What do I need to do to be successful in recovery? What happens if I start sliding back? What am I going to do? Who can I call? Who can I count on? Where should I go? What happens if I, have to go into the hospital, or what will happen to my house, if you have a plan, it doesn't really take that long. Just sit down. It takes about a day. Sit down, and this is basically the WRAP plan, WRAP. That is one of the really popular recovery plans. You can find it on the internet, and it covers all aspects of your life. It helps you ahead of time to decide what you want to do if you have a relapse, if you have some kind of a breakdown or something. You'll have it already written out on paper, and you'll have given it to someone, because part of the WRAP is to include other people and make sure they know what to do for you if you have a problem, and your wishes and how you would want things carried out. It's very in-depth, and it's a good thing for people in recovery to have a WRAP. So I will put a link to that on here as well. I think that is about all I have for today. Thank you so much, Shay, for being here with me. I know I was kind of boring today, but I didn't really have a lot of time to prepare for this, so I just kind of went with what I dealt with today, which was trauma. So, all right, everybody, thank you for joining me on here. I'll see you next time.